So now you're here again, knocking at my door. A little too late for, I'm sorry for. The lights went out cause you kept cutting the cord, and I started to fade into your gray. See, I finally opened up my eyes, and I saw me coming back to life. That I'd be better without you inside. It's time to be someone I wanna recognize. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now. I waited for you in the passenger seat. There's only so far I can ride in your dreams. While you were chasing everything else but me, I'm starting to break out from your gray. See, I finally opened up my eyes, and I saw me coming back to life. That I'd be better without you inside. It's time to be someone I wanna recognize. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now. Down, cause the future is now. Not backing down, cause the future is now. The So now you're here again, knocking at my door. A little too late for, I'm sorry for. The lights went out cause you kept cutting the cord. And I started to fade into your gray. See, I finally opened up my eyes, and I saw me coming back to life. That I'd be better without you inside. It's time to be someone I wanna recognize. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now. The future is now. The future is now. I waited for you in the passenger seat. There's only so far I can ride in your dreams. While you were chasing everything else but me, I'm starting to break out from your gray. See, I finally opened up my eyes, and I saw me coming back to life. That I'd be better without you inside. It's time to be someone I wanna recognize. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now. The future is now. I'm not backing down, cause the future is now. Not backing down, cause the future is now. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now. The future So now you're here again, knocking at my door. A little too late for, I'm sorry for. The lights went out 'cause you kept cutting the cord, and I started to fade into your gray. See, I finally opened up my eyes, and I saw me coming back to life. That I'd be better without you inside. It's time to be someone I wanna recognize. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now. The future is now. The future is now. I waited for you in the passenger seat. There's only so far I can ride in your dreams. While you were chasing everything else but me, I'm starting to break out from your gray. See, I finally opened up my eyes. 'Cause the future is now, not backing down. 'Cause the future is now. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now.
An ecosystem is a geographic area where plants, animal, and other organisms, as well as weather and landscapes, work together to form a bubble of life. Ecosystems are dynamic entities, as they are always in the process of recovering from some past disturbance. The capacity of a system to withstand a disturbance and reorganize while undergoing change is actually termed ecological resilience. So the Earth is doing its job, but are we really helping? Are we using our collective strength to create resilient societies and bring back the planet to balance? Well, many are, but more should. And that is why we are here today. It's time to tear down the silos and start talking about what we can do by collaborating. What are the supporting ecosystems that already exist, and how do we use them to our benefit? What are the possibilities, and what are the risks? We, you, and I, are a part of this ecosystem, in the middle of a dynamic and fast-paced evolution that is challenging us more than ever. But in challenges, there are also opportunities. In every ecosystem, there is a collaboration, and in collaboration, there is progress. That is what we wish to elaborate on today. So welcome to the 4th virtual seminar, The Earth as Power, Let's Switch It On. My name is Kristina Hagström-Milewska, and I'm honored to be your host today. You are joining us from more than 50 countries, from different industries, with different titles and from different time zones. I actually know that there are many from New Zealand up in the middle of the night watching this live. Kudos to you guys. All to see this amazing lineup of people helping us to deep dive in the geothermal ecosystem. As usual, to help us elevate this entertainment, we have our house band. Please help me welcome up on stage the brothers Johan and Patrik Stenström from the band Jim and Pat Garrett. I wish I could do that, you know. It doesn't come naturally for me.
No, well...
That's why I have you on stage, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for having us doing that.
Thank you, guys. I can't wait to hear more of your music, and you're gonna help me to make sure that we really elevate all the speakers today, correct?
Great. Yes.
Are you ready for this show?
Oh, we're so looking forward to this.
Yeah, you have the crowd, not visually here, but they're out there somewhere.
We're imagining.
We're imagining
naked,
them all the way.
as they say, yeah.
Now, without further ado, let's make sure that we walk through the agenda so that you know what is coming up ahead. First, we will talk about the global ecosystem. How can we intensify the work to tackle climate change on a global level?
Yeah.
What do you say about that?
I think it's a great idea.
Ambassador of Sweden to Iceland, Pär Ahlberger, will give us insights on this topic. Next is the geothermal ecosystem. The speaker on this subject will be John Worth from Geo40, a New Zealand-based geothermal mineral company that developed this process technology. We'll find out about how valuable minerals can be extracted from geothermal fluids before they are used for energy. That speech will be followed by a panel debate on what else can be a part of this ecosystem. We will also investigate the digital ecosystem. Digital ecosystems are made up of suppliers, customers, trading partners, application, third-party data services, providers, and numbers of respective technologies. Is there a possibility? Could there be a perfect digital ecosystem created for the energy markets? How could it influence and even disrupt the industry? Kevin Levos from MCAP Empowering Capabilities will speak about digital ecosystems and their role. This is a heavy agenda, guys. Are you ready? And we're not even halfway yet. I think we need a little music here.
Just a little.
Just a little. He will be followed by a panel debate on the ecosystem of people, featuring Baseload's Jesper Jolma and Anne Robertson-Tate of Geothermics. We will learn from them how can we win in the ecosystem of talent and how can we create the most attractive workplaces in our industry. Money is always an issue, and that's why we have the topic of financial ecosystems. Because if environmental considerations were taken into account when making investment decisions, we would see more long-term investments in sustainable economic activities. As sustainable investing continues to grow across all markets, we will discuss the future of a sustainable finance. Pär Ahlberger, Director and Head of Large Corporate Department of EKN, the Swedish Export Credit Agency, will tell us more about this topic. To sum this up, we have a live case of the ecosystem of renewable business. Midori Mitsunami is the owner of a traditional Japanese hot spring spa, which has been combined with a geothermal power plant. This solution generates renewable energy as well as extra income for the spa owner. To tell you more about that, we have the Representative Director of Baseload Power Japan, Ryota Hiratsuka, will tell you more about how this story came to life.
Is that the end of it, or?
No, we have more. Are you ready for that?
Yes.
I need a da-da-da-dum.
Let's keep going.
Yeah, there we go.
This is just the start.
This is just the start. Or actually, I just have a small finish for you. We will have a recap of the World Geothermal Conference that recently took place in Iceland, and we will tell you more about the roundtable and the next step for that. Don't miss in the end. We have a global rollout that you really don't want to miss. So you see, guys, we have a lot going on. Let's kick it off by giving you a secret.
Secrets.
Secrets. Secrets that I whisper that no one else will get to know.
That we will reveal one after one.
One after one. The secret I will tell you is about the triple helix model, where academia, industry, and the authorities together identify, research, and develop innovative technology and services that meet the country's needs. This is the core of Sweden's triple helix model lies in the understanding that innovation contributes to national economic growth. The triple helix form is a great ecosystem, if may so, and I've even heard there is a fourth and a fifth version of this as well. But who better to talk about this than the one who actually taught me about this? That's why I'm extremely proud to present to you our first speaker. He has a long career within the Swedish Foreign Ministry and has been posted at different locations around the world. Before he was posted to Iceland, he was Sweden's ambassador for international sustainable business and the ambassador to Australia. Throughout his career, he's advocated passionately for sustainable business and was instrumental in setting up the Swedish CSR Center in Beijing. We are proud to have him as Sweden's ambassador to Iceland, making a difference to the ecosystem between the countries. For a while, I will give him to you, joining us from what I know is a very symbolic place. Please help me welcome the ambassador of Iceland to Sweden, Mr. Pär Ahlberger.
A very good afternoon to all of you. I'm delighted to join you here from Iceland, because this is what it's all about, isn't it? Icelanders really know what it's all about, power from the earth. I would like just to give a few remarks on 4 topics. The first one would be business opportunities. There are tremendous business opportunities, obviously, in connection with the necessary transition of our societies. But in order fully to utilize this, what is needed, and that is obvious to you as for all of us, I assume, what is needed is that someone needs to pave the way for fossil-free solutions and a circular economy, simply. And this can only be done in close collaboration between governments, academia and business. So the triple helix model, as it's sometimes called, this tripartite collaboration, I would say it's more relevant and needed than ever. So that would be my first comment on business opportunities. The second comment or reflection is on climate diplomacy. For Sweden and for many other countries, I believe, business is crucial, and the competence of business is crucial in climate diplomacy. To us, I would say that climate diplomacy rests on 3 pillars. Financing, important, that we'll be hearing more about. Dialogue, and finally innovations. And again, triple helix model is absolutely fundamental for this diplomacy. So I invite companies to join us in this mission of ours. The third comment or reflection is on sustainability, the concept of international sustainability. We have all seen a tremendous development during the last 20 years or so. I recall early 2000, when we only spoke about corporate social responsibility, the social aspects being obviously important. But now what has happened, as we have all experienced, is that it has become a much more all-embracing concept, a way of conducting business. And you fit in, certainly this sector, into that concept of international sustainable business. My fourth and final comment is on new technologies and how to implement them. If we benchmark a bit with the mining sector, what we did, as I explained during the industrial roundtable recently in Reykjavik, what we've done on the mining sector, Sweden, is that we have implemented and invited companies like Ericsson on 5G to the traditional mining sector. And obviously important is that they contribute with an element to make the mining sector more sustainable. But also important is the perception of the industry, which has changed, I think, through this. And I think we can benchmark a bit on with the mining and other sectors in this. So by that, I will let you enjoy a few seconds from what we see behind me. Thank you.
I I told you that he was going to be in a symbolic environment. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. You mentioned that the concept of international sustainable business has developed during the last 20 years. Could you please elaborate on how this has made an impact to the collaboration between government, business and academia?
Thanks a lot, Christina. Very relevant question, which I've been working on for decades now. So, a simple way to answer your question would be the following. So, some 20 years ago, when the concept of CSR, corporate social responsibility, was developed, we from government or from embassies, we mainly collaborated with human resource departments within the different companies in a simplified way. Now, 20 years later, I can simply conclude that now all parts of our partners, companies, are involved in the collaboration. It's environmental aspect, human rights aspect, and so forth. So a true and wide collaboration, that is what we see now, an all-embracing collaboration between us, which personally makes my job much more exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. Your example of new technologies in the mining sector is interesting. How can we be inspired from this in the geothermal sector?
Tack, Christina, for that question as well. An idea could be the following. So what we did, I think this must have been now 4 years ago. We invited Ericsson in our case, and also Saab Technologies, to present their solutions and see how we could implement new technologies in the mining sector. So that is something that you could possibly consider as a pilot project or a model to invite a few new companies that haven't been involved in the geothermal sector since before, just to sound out and see if you could find a joint platform, a way to collaborate. Again, we have good experiences with it, and I think that would be the case for you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. You have not only given us the insights that are really important for us, but you've also given us a true visual of the Earth having power. Now, between the 25th and the 27th of October, we had the World of Geothermal gathered in Iceland to finally join hands again. And my, oh my, did we enjoy this face-to-face meeting. Am I right, Marit and Alexander? Did we enjoy to shake hands?
Absolutely, absolutely.
It was a long time since we actually had the pleasure to meet face-to-face, and it was very interesting to see how everybody had been longing for this for a long time.
It was incredible to see, indeed.
Very good. Listen, we had a couple of really interesting days over there, and it would be very interesting to see if you could actually elaborate a little bit if I ask you, because you were actually the ones who were organizing everything. You were behind every step of the way, and I know that you had a couple of months prior to this that you were really hectic. But in the end, now when you can reflect and look back, what do you bring with you? What were your thoughts after that? Let's start with you, Marit. What do you say? Or Alex, we start with you.
Hi.
There you go. Good. Marit, go ahead.
Hi, Christina. Good to see you.
See you too.
It's indeed, and thank you for a wonderful question.
Listen, Marit, I was asking a little bit here about the feeling afterwards, how you were
away with me and the team.
I guess we have, Marit, a little bit difficulties with the sound, but then I'll hop over to you, Alex, in the meantime. What were your reflections after the event?
I mean, apart from naturally meeting in person for the first time in such a long time, has been tremendously important for us as an industry. And naturally, on behalf of the IGA, it was fantastic that we've been able to hold the event with the Icelandic partners and launch initiatives like the Geothermal Sustainability Assessment Protocol, a very important aspect also for the geothermal sector to contribute on sustainable development. And the Reykjavik Declaration, which basically highlighted the role of geothermal energy for the world going into the COP26 meetings.
I agree, Marit. Do we have you with us now? What were your biggest reflections after the VGC?
Yeah, so I think from my behalf, it's all about us coming together and being action oriented. Besides the fact that we had a lot of energy going on, especially after such a long time of preparation, we convened and we had people who said, let's just do this. Let's make it happen. And let's do it in a sustainable, environmentally friendly, and in an aligned, streamlined way, such that it benefits the people, the planet, and the sustainability goals of the UN. And I think part of that coming together is so important, that you look each other in the eye and that you convene and that you have nice
I agree.
discussion. Equally important, and that's action.
I agree. What would you say were the biggest trends that you saw in the discussions and the seminars that we had throughout these days? Alex, what do you say?
I mean, I think the overall vibe was very clear. We are entering a geothermal decade. I think geothermal has never seen such a strong interest in the discussions about energy for the future, in particular in the context of providing heat to decarbonizing the heating sector has been a tremendous wake-up call for us as an industry. And at the same time, we're seeing a lot of interest by technology developers to take the risk out of geothermal development, to improve the way how we develop projects. So there are opportunities representing itself for us as a sector that are clearly making this an incredibly important years to come.
I agree. Marit, would you like to add something to the trends that Alex spotted?
Yes, also I see a lot of political consensus of the need for clean electricity and the need for clean heat. And that's part of the discussion that we had even after Iceland, in Glasgow at COP26 and the SDG 7 pavilion. The energy transition is really an energy transformation, and it takes all of us to deliver on that, including the ones developing power projects, including the ones who are developing heat projects. I think that's exciting as a trend to see, that we're embracing energy as a whole, and it's that holistic, sustainable energy supply and sourcing of it that geothermal can help achieve. And that is an exciting other trend that I've observed very much in Iceland.
We were having a really interesting roundtable discussion as well. What would be your summary of that and lessons learned from listening to? We had more than 120 people, geothermal experts from all over the world, helping us to answer questions, which we also debated on stage. What were your biggest insights from that? And you're waiting for who to start? Alex. Alex, please.
I think the message is very clear. We as an industry understand that we have not been good enough in communicating what we have to offer to the world and to the energy transition, and that we can do better. And I think that was, clearly visible, and we heard this from the discussions. There were also concrete ideas presented of what we can do to sharpen our profile. And highlighting the need of us collaborating better. And I think that's why, in the context of this discussion today of ecosystem, understanding us being part of a larger ecosystem and puzzling these things together are absolutely crucial in strengthening our position as an industry. And that collaboration to take forward is part of the results of this event and this roundtable. And that's what we're preparing now going forward.
Marit, can you tell us a little bit more about what we are preparing going for? What's the next step when it comes to the roundtable?
Yeah, very much, because I think it resonated also in the entire WGC, is that we want to move with action-oriented people, meaning task forces, meeting concrete deliverables and tasks that people can actively work on and position geothermal global around. And I think the next step is really to get all that fantastic thinking and human capital that we have now with ThinkGeo and with Baseload in the IGA umbrella. And I think that is serving the global community very well, but we need to put it into action and into concrete next steps. And that's what we're going to do, formulate a few task forces, having people actually deliver and bring it forward to relevant players out there who are wanting to work with us to position geothermal outside our geothermal bubble.
So what we agreed upon, Alex, please.
And I think the crucial aspect is here understanding that the topic is large and we need to split it down in workable pieces. That's what we're going to do, and have working groups on these specific aspects, allowing for a better approach going forward in discussing these topics to streamline and come out with better results for us as an industry.
So what we are hoping to give you that are all listening out there and all the geothermal experts that has been a part of this is to create a task force, making sure that we together can create a brand profile moving ahead. So we are looking forward to continue to do this. They will get all the information with the newsletters and the collective group that we already gathered. That will be a big and important part because we couldn't do it without them, correct?
Absolutely.
Our job will only be to facilitate, and then we will make sure to get the word from the people who are in the industry. So looking forward to continue this with you. And I just want to say too, we had the absolute opportunity, if anyone who wasn't able to see you at the VGC is able to actually look at your very liked about the lecture that you held, the geothermal decade, that we will send out later later in the week coming up here. So they will have a possibility to look there. So Alex, Marit, thank you for the recap very much, and I look forward working together with you and the rest of the community to make sure that we are uniting our industry moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your support.
And I think that I have someone with me up on stage. I think that I have Baseload's own CEO, Alexander Helling, ready to take me on to the next step, correct?
Thank you very much, Christina. And, thank you to Alex and Marit. And, just a recap from the VGC from my part was really when you guys said that, we're moving into the geothermal decade. And I think that's just amazing. How about that, Christina?
I love that.
Yeah. So, for our next guest, he's an experienced CEO with extensive expertise in the energy sector across geothermal, wind, solar, hydro, and wave fuel categories. He sees a real potential for innovation in the geothermal sector as part of a low-carbon future. He's a registered engineer, an Oxford postgraduate, and last but not least, he's a dedicated surfer in his spare time. He's the reason why New Zealand is up watching a seminar at 4 a.m. just now. So please let me welcome Mr. John Worth, the CEO of Geo40.
Thank you, Alex. That's very kind, Alex. Thank you for your words. It's very nice to be joining you all here today. And look, we do like our surf down here in New Zealand, but we are still in some kind of lockdown, so we're not allowed to get haircuts, which is why my hair looks like it does. I'll get straight into a little introduction to Geo40, what we do, and we explain it in two lines. Sustainable future minerals, that's what we recover from geothermal fluid, and in doing so we bring about some geothermal ecosystem innovation, and I'll do my best to try and explain over the next few minutes exactly what we mean by that. 40 has been around for about 8 years now. This is more paintings. Pictures once called the 8th world. That's what's known as the pink and white terraces. It was destroyed by an eruption in 1886, and effectively that is the phenomenon of geothermal fluid cascading down a hillside and depositing silica as it does so. And that is effectively the process that we set out to develop in a mechanical way. So on the right-hand side, that is what silica scaling looks like in a geothermal reinjection well. And so we talk about silica as both, I guess, an opportunity and a problem. We, as a company, I guess we are a collection of interesting disciplines. We're engineers, chemists, scientists, metallurgists, geologists, process engineers. And what we've been good at doing is developing processes and progressively scaling them up. So our journey always starts off in the laboratory, where we are targeting a specific mineral in geothermal fluid. And Geo40 actually set out to target the highest value minerals in geothermal fluid almost a decade ago. So way back then, we were looking for lithium, cesium, and antimony. And what we realized, like many people in the geothermal sector, is that there was one mineral in geothermal fluid which is ubiquitous, meaning it's always present and it almost always causes problems. And that's silica. So this is where we first, I guess, deployed our scaling up process. And you'll hear the word scaling a lot today. But effectively, this is the nature. And then that up by about a factor of 10 until you've got what like a very large tree. From there, we tend to build a plant. Sitting on the left is our silica pilot plant. And actually built two of them. We built one that did some work in Japan and another one in New Zealand. And that let us trial our technology on half a dozen or more geothermal fields to prove that our technology worked. From there, that gave us the confidence to scale up by a factor of about 10 to what we call a demonstration plant scale. And that demonstration plant is at the Ohaki geothermal field in the central North Island of New Zealand. We've been running that plant for almost 4 years, very successfully. And that was a very important asset for us because it enabled us to start selling high-quality colloidal silica offshore. And remember that nobody had ever recovered colloidal silica out of geothermal fluid and actually tried to make a saleable product from it. And that gave us confidence to go up about 10 times bigger again to what we call a full-scale plant. And so that is the one in the bottom right-hand corner. I'll show you that in a moment. And that plant is processing almost 7 million litres of geothermal fluid a day. So we talk about Geo40's DNA as being this sort of scale-up approach. It's how we manage technical risk and very relevant in the geothermal world where, as you all know, there are no shortage of surprises. When we talk about innovating in the geothermal ecosystem, we tend to set up immediately after primary power generation. So this little schematic says fluids coming up out of the ground, maybe at 300 degrees, and a bunch of that heat is being converted into electricity. What's limiting the amount of electricity that gets generated, or the amount of heat that's converted to megawatts or megawatt hours, is of course the need to keep the reinjection temperature quite high to keep the silica in solution. We tend to set up our silica recovery plant immediately after the power station. We only take a few degrees of heat out of the fluid, so we preserve most of the heat. And then that opens up two opportunities. We drop the silica concentration down to a relatively low level, and that makes that extra heat available. That creates two opportunities. One, of course, is the use of that heat for industry or district heating, or, of course, the generation of additional power through a bottoming cycle plant, an organic Rankine cycle plant. Post generation of additional electricity or district heating, we then move again and will seek to recover other minerals from that fluid. And there's a range of minerals where we've either developed processes or have technology. So we have a process developed for boron. We're working on cesium, stibnite or antimony. And one of the things that I guess is most exciting about the geothermal ecosystem, and particularly for anybody who's made a commitment to the Paris Accord, is the opportunity to sequester geothermal CO2 emissions. And we talk in this manner about there really being two key precursors to CO2 sequestration. One is a reduced silica concentration to enable the silica to dissolve CO2 to dissolve in the fluid. And the second, of course, is a reduced reinjection temperature, ideally as low as possible. Of course, you can only do that if you've taken the silica out of the geothermal fluid. The obvious question: why isn't everybody doing this? And we hear lots of reasons, and some of them sound like excuses, but some of them reflect the complex nature of the geothermal environment. Right? Conceptually, this sounds complex, right? And I guess we've worked hard to make it much less complex for generators. Generation companies tend to be large, and that means they've got internal processes to get through. We're seeing countries just start to understand what their Paris obligations will mean, what the size of their carbon dioxide checks will be associated with geothermal generation. Not everywhere you've got space to put a mineral recovery plant. And I think the most important, and it'll come up again and again today, is that probably the most important criteria for chasing minerals in geothermal fluid or for removing silica to enable CO2 sequestration is really that concept of motivation, right? And that's the number one thing we look for in a partner, is that genuine motivation to find new value. And essentially we look for those that wish to lead, not follow. And then I've just dropped in there as a little reminder on the right-hand side there, a certain element called lithium. And it's interesting. We've been working on lithium now for several years. We've invested a lot of money in lithium recovery. Earlier in the year, we filed 3 new patents, and we have a process route, a test rig. We're out of the lab, and by early next year, we will be trialing a wide range of global brines in terms of lithium recovery. And we've already done this work with Cornish Lithium, looking at their resources in the UK, and looking at brines out of South America and brines out of New Zealand. And we believe we have a pretty compelling technology to offer alongside silica and other minerals. I think one of the things we love about these conversations is, as it's been well put already today, is the opportunity for the different actors to come together and show how this can be done. And I've listed here, it's another classic ecosystem. I've listed here some of the essential actors. Taking silica out, of course, is important to give rise to these other opportunities. That's a service we can offer. Heat recovery generation is becoming very, very compelling. The idea of adding additional generation in a incremental way with a Climon plant or other ORC plants, without any further investment in the steam field, of course, is very compelling. It's a way of new generation without the resource risk. I think the role that the baseload is playing in the sector here is very powerful. For those utilities that perhaps don't wish to do it themselves, that look perhaps for a hands-off approach where baseload can step in as an operator and funder. And we're seeing some other important actors in the space, including people like GNS, New Zealand's own geothermal science powerhouse, who have developed real expertise in things like CO2 sequestration, fluid rock interaction studies. So I think the message here I wanted to leave you with is that the extent to which we succeed in this geothermal decade will be all about our ability to collaborate and work together. I think we have all the pieces assembled across the sector, but of course the job is to actually bring those together and do this important work. And I think, just to close, I think what's exciting is that certainly we're starting to prove that we can do it. And the image on your screen is what we call our northern plant. This was the large-scale plant I mentioned in my opening slide. And we commissioned this in February this year. And this is a world first. This is the first plant in the world that pulls colloidal silica sustainably out of geothermal fluid. And this is a product we're now selling as far afield as Europe, Japan, United States, Mexico, across Asia, Australia. And this competes better than any other colloidal silica made by melting quartz sand. And we have a carbon footprint of that product that's tiny. So it's starting to find real favour in the market. Just looking forward over the next 12 to 18 months, I'd like to actually do the same thing on further sites, new sites, but we'll also like to be doing it in lithium recovery as well. And that's really all I wanted to say about Geo40. Thank you for the opportunity to present today, and I'll look forward to some dialogue.
Thank you very much, John, for that interesting insight in geothermal ecosystems. We are ready to present to you the next speaker already now. He's worked with over 50+ global customers in industries such as capital markets, finance, automotive, manufacturing, and energy and telecommunication. He's a digital transformation consultant who utilizes his experience in Six Sigma and all of these very, very difficult words to mention, and he does it to modernize his clients' operations to ensure resilience, sustainability, and long-term profitability. As of late, he's been working more and more with analyzing his clients' complex and dynamic ecosystems to identify opportunities never thought of possible before. Through the means of data capture, storage, and data utilization, help me welcome up on stage from the company that wants their success to be other success, Kevin Levos from MCAP, Empowering Capabilities. Take it away, Kevin.
Thank you, Christina, for the nice introduction. And I'll quickly jump right in. So, of course, you're looking here at a picture of the Western Hemisphere, and you see two places outlined. See, Hawaii and Costa Rica. So if I think a little bit about the characteristics of, let's start with Hawaii, right? Middle of the Pacific Ocean, nothing is around for thousands of miles, it's very isolated. And maybe something that you can't see on the map is it has a low diversity of species and ecosystems. Then I move over to Costa Rica. Influences from North America, South America, Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean. It has 13 unique ecosystems, all comprised in this small geographical area. What does that mean? So what, right? Well, when something happens, there's a disruption, a sudden change. Time and time again, it shows that the species and ecosystems of Hawaii, they really suffer. Time and time again, species and ecosystems, Costa Rica, bounce back up on their feet again. And probably the reasons why is that the species, they're hedging their risk. They're in many different ecosystems. So something happens in one place, they're hedging. And there's also this term called symbiotic relationships that you use in science. And in the business context, you could think of co-opetition, where species, people are coming together and working together, otherwise they would have never worked with in the past. So getting into many different ecosystems and co-opetition, these are characteristics of nature that we can really take with us in the business world. And I'm a process improvement consultant. Christina had a lot of adjectives there, but basically for a long time in these traditional projects, I would go in and look at the supply chain, look at where is there overprocessing, defects, waiting, and I can tell you more and more, I'll even make a really bold statement. It's more important for you today to have an okay product or an okay service, but be plugged into many ecosystems like Costa Rica, than it is to have the very best product or best service in one ecosystem. I mean, that's quite a fundamental shift in thinking. And I'll give one fluffy example of Starbucks, right? Maybe 10, 15 years ago, best roasting techniques, best coffee beans, most efficient supply chain. We need to be better, better, better than our competitors. And today, you'll see them popping up all over the place, gas stations all over Sweden, right? They've made a fundamental decision to start looking into different ecosystems, to start looking at competitors and where they can join forces. And that's what we need to start doing. But how? I'm going to start off by saying, unfortunately, which you'll see in my last slide, it's all about data, but it doesn't have to be unfortunately forever. So the very first thing you need to do is start consolidating your data into one place. And SharePoint is not a database, because you need to put your data somewhere where you can utilize it, do something with it. So I know a lot of the people that I talk to at the conference in geothermal using Microsoft. So maybe just read up on what data lakes can do for you. You can take structured data, unstructured data from initial assessment reports and memorandums, and dump them in that data lake. When you have it in the data lake, now this is where the value is really going to start to happen. Now you can start utilizing all the services that your platform has to offer. Maybe it's a RPA service in the exploration phase, when you're searching manually for who owns the property. Maybe it's AI service that's going to help you identify what parameters are affecting KPIs. So what do I mean by that? Well, you know, I'm sure many of you have sensors set up in your power plant operations. So it tells you the temperature is 100 degrees, or the fluid, the rate of water flow was 20 liters a second yesterday. Today it's 7 liters per second. That's great that you have that information. What you really want to know is why, right? These are the type of services that you can start to utilize, like AI and logic services that can start to give you insight. And let's do a hypothetical situation here, right? There's geothermal company 1, they have 10 people, and they continue to work in the traditional way of working, versus geothermal company 2 with 10 people as well, but they're utilizing all the different services. So geothermal company 1 spends a lot of time collecting data, turning that into some kind of usable information, whereas company 2, that's automated for them already. They're already getting insights from AI and ML. RPA is doing the work for them. So they can spend their time on decision making, right? So something sudden happens, a big change. Company 2 can react really quickly. And finally, I don't want to get too technical. I want to keep this kind of simple and high level, but you need to start thinking about how you can expose your data to all the external stakeholders out there. So suppliers, partners, even competitors. What type of data, if you exposed, you could really speed up your business? So, data collection, number 1. Utilize services available to you, become much more diverse. Start exposing your data. We have a little problem, though. So, you know, I haven't been in the industry so long. I'm still a little bit green, but I went around talking to people at the conference, subject matter experts, and I always try to figure out, where is this industry at in their digital transformation? And you know, some areas you scored higher, some areas you scored average. But I can tell you, no matter who I talk to at the geothermal conference, whether they're a geoscientist who has specific needs and specific data types, or an operations manager in a power plant who has different needs, you always scored low on these 2 questions. Do you have easy access to data to be able to do your job? And do you trust the data that you're looking at? And this is a bit of a problem, because the most successful organizations in the world, they spend very little time in the transactional layer, where you're collecting data, you're massaging it, you're trying to turn it into information. All of that's automated for them, and they spend most of the time in the analytics layer. So now we have a journey. We need to flip the switch. We need to find a way to modernize and spend time in the analytics and decision-making layer. And you can start by collecting your data, putting it in one place, start utilizing services like AI to help you trust the data, spot anomalies, find correlation coefficients that you couldn't identify before. This will bring up your score. So, of course, it sounds easy or maybe complex, but I'll finish on this, because I'm working on a project with Baseload, of course, and I was having a discussion with the CEO the other day on a specific project, and he had mentioned hard things are hard. And I think this quote came from Obama, of course. And I think of the challenges that we have to modernize and digitally transform. Hard things are hard, but yes, we can. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Sure.
My first thought, this sounds expensive, is it?
Maybe I'll flip the switch on that. I was having a conversation with a man from Business Sweden when we were in Iceland, and I was talking about cases that like ExxonMobil is doing or Volvo, similar type of processes where they're collecting data and they're starting to utilize services and exposing it and so on. And he said to me, yeah, but obviously geothermal, they don't have the same capital available to start investing in this. He's totally right. However, there's a term cloud native. We're almost data native because we're very lucky. Those companies have thousands of applications, thousands of places where they're storing data and it's in silos. That's a seriously complex project for them and they're undertaking it. Whereas us, we have a few applications. So the project is relatively simple for us. So I won't give you a dollar value, but I'll say it's simple, and simple usually equates to
So actually
cheaper.
there are no excuses for really diving into this, definitely. But it's also interesting if you turn it around. What's the risk if we don't act?
The risk, okay. I won't get dramatic and say something like, well, if we don't change, maybe an example like COP26, right? That was just going on. And I know there was some sentiment that we needed to be on the radar more, right? Mm-hmm. I think the best way to get on the radar is start showing awesome reference cases of how we've modernized an industry. Processes that used to take months are now taking weeks to days. And that's all within our reach, using technology as an enabler. So we can mitigate those risks and we can start getting on people's radars a lot more.
You heard it. So Kevin, as a final question, I think that this is very relevant and good information, but also a lot of information which we need to digest, and they can of course watch it afterwards. But if they would take away one thing from this presentation you had, what would that be? What would your advice be?
Yeah, maybe don't get intimidated by lingo and terms. So I start talking about like services and AI and ML. And usually the reaction by people the first time they hear that, they think of like self-driving cars and like, oh, AI is so complicated. But there's so many really simple AI services and logic services that are already available that you could start using. So just get in, store your data in one place, start experimenting with those different type of services, and it's going to lead you on a great journey and a great path.
So again, no excuses.
No excuses.
No excuses. You heard it from here. It is actually a part of what the world looks today, and we need to take technology into consideration. One other thing that we can never take out of consideration is actually the people around you. So thank you, Kevin, and help me welcome the next people up on stage. We've heard that there is so much job to be done, with a generation pickier than ever about where they would like to put their work hours. We as an industry have not only have to be attractive and modern, we also have to live up to what we promise. So we decided that we needed to discuss the topic in a panel debate hosted by no other than Baseload Capital's own COO, Pernilla Wihlborg. And she has with her on stage a woman and a man, two generations, two different roles, with more than 40 years of experience gathered together here. We have Anne Robertson-Tate with us, and we have Jesper Jolma. Please let me welcome them up on stage.
Thank you, Christina. And Jesper, Anne, I'm so happy to be here with you when talking about this very, very important topic. People, talent. And we're just going to kick it right off. Let's look externally. So the talent pool we have in front of us where we're finding all these people. What does it look like? Is it broad enough for what we need? Is it the right people in the pool?
Who should start?
Start with you, Jesper.
Well, I've only been in this industry for a couple of years now, and I don't know what you would say, Anne, but to me it's pretty clear that the industry does have a large pool of talent when it comes to primarily technical skills and knowledge. But at least from my perspective, there's a quite big gap when it comes to primarily, financial and and more also marketing in terms of Christina, what she's doing, that type of knowledge. I mean, also when you're studying, for example, in your university and so on, it's pretty clear that a lot of the other industries, they have a lot of focus and a lot of attention, but you never hear the word geothermal when you're studying finance or whatever. What would you say, Anne?
Even in geology, I mean, I was talking to some colleagues, some friends over the weekend, and their nephew is doing a geology degree at Syracuse University in New York. Now, Syracuse, New York is not a place where there's a lot of geothermal, but they're not even learning about geothermal there. So we do have a gap in terms of what people are understanding, even as geoscientists and engineers, how those skills can go into the only clean baseload renewable source of energy that we have. So this is a message that's being missed. So I think we do have a problem in getting the word geothermal into the dialogue, but there's a lot of smart people graduating right now who might want to know about it and join the geothermal industry for its incredible environmentally meaningful values.
So what I gather both of you saying a bit is that we have a problem getting our message out to these people, that they should be sort of joining us, so attracting them is the problem. And if we were better at that, which markets, you mentioned financials, geology, is there anything else, marketing, but are there more sectors that we need to reach out to? Who do we need to go into this new decade?
Well, if I mind going first here again, I would really connect to what Kevin was saying earlier. I think we really need to attract a lot of more people from very different backgrounds, but have the right sort of mindset and willingness to engage and take on really big problems. So in essence, if you think about it, I would say it's competing with all the big players that are, basically looking for the best talent, whether it be, big data companies like Google or big financial players, but really going after the people that are very keen to take on a big challenge and work, very hard to do whatever it takes to solve it.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but I think that there are people out there who need to know more about geothermal, and I think they would be attracted to it. The question is, are they getting educated well enough at this point? So, and data science absolutely is super important in any technological endeavor, including geothermal. I mean, our fundamentals are geoscientists and engineers to create the projects, but the willingness to become part of the geothermal sector can span a much broader range of expertises, and I think we do need that.
Okay, so let's say we manage to reach out and we attract all these people and we manage to educate them and they start joining us. If we start looking on the inside, what is our business like? What is the sector like? Can we keep them? Are we modern enough in the way that how we work?
I'll jump in and say, no, we're not modern enough in the way we work. We have been in this business for a long time. Like Jesper is kind of relatively new to the industry, so he's probably young and ambitious and thinking we have all this great technology. Geothermal is a bit of a low-tech enterprise. That's not to say that there aren't many useful attributes of geothermal that require a lot of technology and a lot of thought. There certainly are. But in the end, we're trying to get heat out of the ground, and it's a fundamentally difficult thing to do, and yet we must do it to save our planet. And geothermal has, this whole spectrum of opportunities to offer. So I think we will attract these people. The more they know about geothermal, the more they will like it. And the ancillary, I would say, technologies that would come in, things like people who are experts in artificial intelligence and machine learning, in optimizing systems, in the engineering sense of optimization. These people will come into geothermal when they realize that it is a bigger player in the industry. But the first message has to be, let them know how great it is and attract them, because young people today coming out of university, they want something that is meaningful. And maybe we'll get to that in the next series of questions, Pernilla, so I'll leave it there.
Yeah, what a cliffhanger, but I need to hear from Jesper. You are more new into this.
Yeah, I just briefly need to fill into that, because I think it's a twofold issue. I mean, I think what you're saying also is basically making, geothermal as an industry, more attractive as such to attract talent. But I also think what you need to do is make sure that, the companies and the employment opportunities are equally interesting. Namely, make sure that people understand that it's a fun business. There are fun opportunities and companies. You get to travel a lot around the world, depending on which company you're at, and you get to take on a lot of sort of big issues early on in your career. So really also make sure that, the actual employment opportunity and company is equally attractive.
Yeah, that's a good.
And the challenge is put out there to the young. So look, we have a lot of work to do. People like me who've been working in it a long time. Yes, we have a way of doing things. We have a lot of knowledge, but there's more to be done. And we have a vibrant industry. And as Jesper says, it's a fun industry. If you were at the World Geothermal Congress, you know that the social aspect of it was super important there. And each night there was a great event that was sort of, yes, of course we talk technical things. We can't help it. That's how we are. But we also had a damn good time. And I think the general mantra, or sort of the feeling of people in the geothermal industry, is that A, they want to do something meaningful, and B, they want to enjoy it. And I have to say, I've really enjoyed it all this time.
So I realize now that this feels like we're really just scraping on the surface. This is such an important topic, but we will have to cut it here, and we hopefully have a good reason to come back to this over and over again. People is essential for everything we do, and with that we close this section. Thank you so much for joining me in this, and back to you, Christina.
Well, thank you, Pernilla, for that inspiring conversation. A topic we have talked about a couple of times is money and mere correct investment, actually. And last time we got questions about this actual topic. You wondered, how can we get access to patient capital? Well, we need to understand the financial ecosystem even better. This is one of Alexander Helling, our CEO's favorite topics, so he will be the one leading the conversation with our next guest, a person that just recently came back from Glasgow and COP26. She has extensive experience in the financial ecosystem and is one of the most experienced professionals in large export credit transactions globally. Among the world's export credit agencies, Swedish EKN has been recognized by GTR as leader in trade for sustainability. And today we are happy to have her here telling us more about the financial ecosystem. Please help me welcome up on stage, together with Alexander Helling, Pär Ahlberger, Director, Head of Department Large Corporate EKN, the Swedish Export Credit Agency.
Very welcome, Marie.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you here. And as Christina said, I love discussing the financial ecosystem. And it's so many different players in it. Everything from family offices to VCs, PEs, ECAs, export credit banks, what have you. How will we?
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And it's difficult to understand. So I'm extremely excited and very happy to have you here. My former boss, mentor, and who better to help us guide us through this landscape. But Marie, for all our viewers, can you give a little bit of background about yourself and also EKN, and what is EKN and what is an export credit agency, and how does it fit into the financial ecosystem?
It was interesting to hear that when you work with geothermal, you get to travel around the world and you get to see different countries. And this is exactly what I love about export credits as well. I have been in this business for most of my career. And just to give you a short intro, what is an export credit? An export credit agency is a state agency that promotes export from your country. So EKN promotes exports from Sweden, and we do that by offering guarantees for non-payment, facilitating the financing when an investor buys goods from Sweden. And most countries have this kind of export credit agencies. So in total, I've heard that export credit agencies amount to $700 million yearly in a turnover, which is equivalent to development finance. So they play an important part in infrastructure projects all around the world. We are currently at EKN, for example, we do business in 140 countries.
That's
around the
amazing.
world. Yeah.
140 countries. But elaborate a little bit more. So if I'm a Swedish company and I want to export to a certain customer in Dubai or where have you. So how can I then use EKN, for example?
Then you can offer your customer a financing solution. Your customer or an investor in Dubai who want to invest in an infrastructure project. If they source from a Swedish company, they can access the Swedish export credit system, EKN, and together with the Swedish state-owned bank, SEK. This is a bit confusing, but so they can, an international bank can lend money to the buyer to very attractive rates because it's backed by the Swedish government. That makes the financing of the equipment from Sweden more attractive, and you can offer better terms of your financing solution.
All right, very interesting. So you can actually then, if we were looking to do a geothermal project in Dubai, for example, we could then utilize EKN. We could not lend money from you, but you could give a guarantee to our bank so that we could, finance that project. That's what you're saying, right?
So the bank doesn't have risk on the project itself.
Yeah.
The bank actually has risk on the Swedish state, which is a AAA-rated country. And that is, of course, attractive.
That's very interesting, and it's especially super important when it comes to large green infrastructure projects where you have a very long time period for the payback, for example. But Marie, you also just came back from COP26. So what's your takeaways from the meeting? Did we achieve what we wanted to achieve, and what's your take?
No, I think first of all, it really you really got a sense of urgency, and everyone really wants to be there and contribute. And I saw new collaborations. I think it's amazing because everyone is going to the same direction. Everyone wants to do what they can in order to meet the target of 1.0 degrees.
Yeah.
But what I took personally is the need, particularly for the developing countries. You need to do enormous investments in developing countries to reach a net zero target by 2050. You have to increase it 7 times yearly. From $150 million last year, you need to increase investment to $1 trillion. So it's enormous investments needed.
Yeah. Who's going to do all of these investments?
I think it's not. Everyone has to mobilize the financial resources. But I think it's there. I think the problem is that you have to redirect it to developing countries. And there I see some challenges.
Very good. But so, all of these investments going into developing countries, that also increases the risk quite a lot, right? So, how, in your view, what is necessary for all of us to do that is in the financial ecosystem? What's necessary in order to reach the net zero mission?
I think collaboration is key word. First of all, I think one of the challenges that I have seen in the project that we have financed is that capacity building in these countries. I mean, the knowledge about ENS, about green investment is still quite low. So you have to collaborate with organizations that can support that capacity building.
Yeah.
Secondly, I found that green investments are often very expensive, particularly initially. So there, I think you have to use, for example, export credit agencies to lower their initial investment barriers, to focus more on the long-term benefits. And that's a challenge, particularly if you're a developing country with scarce resources. And then thirdly, I think you have to find new collaborations. You have to collaborate with aid agencies, development finance, export credit institutions, private investors. You all have to collaborate in specific projects.
Very good. Thank you so much for that, Marie. And we're running out of time, and I think that the word for the financial ecosystem is collaboration. And I think that we all have to put a lot of attention into, how can we help each other to collaborate in order to, facilitate all of these investments that are necessary to reach zero emissions. So thank you so much for coming, Marie. It's a pleasure having you. And back to you, Christina.
Thank you.
It's amazing what happens when you have good people and money that is patient. You can actually make miracles. You can make dreams come true. And the next story you are going to hear is actually very much about that. You are going to hear about how we actually made renewable business from geothermal. So who's better to teach us more about this than Baseload's own representative director in Japan? He's worked extensively on strategy and innovation, mainly for the automotive industry for 20 years. His past assignments include the global marketing of Nissan, business development of autonomous track solutions for Volvo Group, and sales and marketing director of a digital marketing platform aimed at Japan's onsen inns. He really has extensive knowledge within this, and he is Ryota Hiratsuka, our own representative director of Baseload Power Japan. Let him tell you the story of the onsen spa in Japan. Please take it away.
自分の温泉が環境に優しいエネルギーを出しているというのは聞いた時には結構ショックでした。嬉しい方のショックです。オープンして1年で母が亡くなり、その2年後には父が亡くなって予定していたことが崩れてしまったのと、温泉に関しての知識が全く私にはなく、いざとなった時のメンテナンスとか手入れの方法を知らないまま温泉の管理ができない状態でいました。温泉はもう生まれた時からあって当たり前にあるものなので、これが止まるということが今でも考えられないことなんですよね。お湯を出してくれるならと藁をも使うような気持ちで相談に乗っていただきましたね。これほど安心したことはなかったですね。うちみたいな小さなお湯でも電気が作れるというのはありがたいと思いました。大事なお湯を電気を作るという理由で出していただける、出していただいたお湯をそのままこちらで使わせていただけるということは一番メリットになってます。みんなが協力し合って温泉を活用できる地域になれたらなと思いますね。
Hello everyone, I'm Ryota Hiratsuka, Representative Director of Baseload Power Japan. Thank you for having me at the seminar today. Our vision, we dream of a planet in balance with resilient societies that run on renewable energy. What does it mean to us? It's about protecting the entire ecosystem, people, local communities, their businesses, and the environment. We have onsen spa culture, which sits at the middle of tourism in Japan. And almost all of our geothermal prospective areas are onsen destinations in remote parts of Japan. COVID-19 pandemic has hit such local communities very hard. They had been suffering from depopulation even before the pandemic, and local ecosystems are damaged even further. Today, I would like to share with you a story on how Baseload might support local ecosystems in Japan through promoting heat power. Midori-san is the owner of the onsen spa facility and business partner for our Kitsune Power plant in the Okuhida region, some 250 kilometers west of Tokyo. Kitsune went live in June last year. This spa had been run by Midori-san's father, but unfortunately he passed away a few years ago. Midori-san didn't know how to run it, and naturally she was devastated. She did have a strong will though. In Japan, a hot water spring has been treated like a family treasure, passed on from generation to generation. She didn't want to stop the relay, didn't want to give up. Many companies visited her, and it was baseload that was her choice. Why? Because she kind of liked our attitude and mindset. Also, we take care of the onsen spa wells and pumps as part of our plant maintenance. So Midori-san can put her full focus on tending to her spa customers without having to worry about technologies. Our vision is to protect the entire ecosystem by connecting people, the earth, hot water with our geothermal technologies so that we can bring the planet back to balance. I'm sure this view is shared all of you participating into this seminar today. We can change the world together. Kitsune is our first pilot plant on the onsen binary application, utilizing existing onsen spa wells, and we have learned a whole lot of things from it. With an output of 50 kilowatt, Kitsune can be a very small step for baseload, but could well be a giant leap in making baseload a leading heat power operator in Japan. Who knows? Our learning journey goes in parallel with Midori-san's learning journey about her onsen super facility. Now, her facility does not only make hikers and tourists happy through very nice onsen spa, but also help bring the society decarbonize. If the onsen binary and super facility run well as businesses, we can also surely pass the baton to future generations. Hopefully, we'll continue to find next Midori-sans in many parts of Japan so that we promote local ecosystems through heat power and help to make our planet in balance. Please join us for the journey. Thank you.
No, thank you, Ryota. It's amazing how you have done this for one onsen owner. I'm curious, could we scale up this even more, and what difference can it make to the onsen owners?
We trust that there exists a greater demand for onsen binary power plants across Japan due to the depopulation and COVID-19. By teaming up with us, we can support onsen owners like Midori-san to make even better use of the hot water and local ecosystems.
Is there a possibility to develop the ecosystem for onsen spas even more? Are there any more connections to be made?
The current trends are to make binary power plants contribute more to improve resilience in local communities. Also, there are many examples where hot water are used to promote local industries like agriculture or inland fishery. We can definitely work with operators in the downstream side of the hot water ecosystem there.
Interesting. That's really continuing the ecosystem. I'm very curious also on what has been your greatest lessons learned in driving this project?
Apart from the engineering learnings, the greatest learning from the Kitsune Power project is that local acceptance is the key. Unfortunately, we're not seen as a Japanese company, but a foreign one, although all of us are Japanese nationals. In order for baseload to be recognized as a credible business partner in a local community in Japan, we need to show by our attitude that we are determined to stay with the local community to work together.
Very true. Good point there. Can I also ask you, as a finishing questions, what are you dreaming of right now? What's your next focus?
We are dreaming of making a local community where baseload is not only providing carbon-free electricity, but also help its people run many businesses, all connected via heat power. One by one, step by step, we'll find the next Midori-san, and one day, Beso Power Japan could well be a leading heat power operator in Japan.
Thank you, Ryota, for helping us visualize the true potential of making sure to revitalize our dreams of a planet in balance. A better case of ecosystem is hard to find, actually. But in order to get more of those, we have to cooperate. And as we said in the beginning, it's time to tear down the silos. The only way to do that is to sit down together and talk. So let's do that. Let's welcome back almost all our guests to the final debate. Welcome back. How are you?
Good. Excellent.
Good, good. We have, John, you are on the link over there, but the rest of you are live, of course. We wanted to summarize a little bit here about what thoughts you have listening in to this whole debate of intelligent speakers and different perspectives. Where do you start from? So let's go with you, Kevin. What have you learned today?
Well, there's definitely this real sense of togetherness already. It could be with competitors or all the different players, and that's a really great blueprint to get started to grow geothermal, because what's the saying? An ecosystem or a team will always produce exponentially more than any one individual actor. So I think we're on the right track.
What do you say, Jesper, from a people's perspective that you're young into the business actually? How do you feel? Do we talk or do we actually act?
No, I would say it's really interesting to hear everything sort of in one agenda, in one sort of array of topics, if you put it that way. Understanding the ecosystems of ecosystems, and that there are so many components to it. And really understanding then also, of course, that the people is an essential part of each of the ecosystems as well. So no, I think we're taking steps in acting as well, so in the right way.
What do you say, Alex? Are we taking the steps that we need?
Yeah, I think that at least we're on the right path. And no offense, Kevin, but all business is people business. So it starts with us, and it starts, with doing the collaboration, and then, I think it's excellent to add on all the technology, the development that can help us, collaborate in a more efficient way. But even if it's, among us in our ecosystem, but then also the larger ecosystem in renewable, and and then on a global scale, how do we actually make the transition from brown to green as fast as possible? And we need to do that. We need to act and we need to execute in order to reach that. And it all starts with the people.
What do you say, Marie, if we look at it, because you have, from a different perspective, you have a lot of industries that you look into. What are your thoughts listening into the geothermal sector as you've done today?
Thank you, first of all, because I've learned a lot today since I'm very new to this business. And I'm really surprised because we have been very heavily involved, and I've seen many projects where we have financed solar and wind. And this is also what I discussed when I was at COP. But I haven't been discussing geothermal so much. So I think there's huge potential there, and I think you need to market yourself a little bit more, actually.
I think that we all agree about this, that we do. That's one of the absolute reasons as well for having this seminar. Well, if I go back to you, John, in New Zealand, what is your thoughts? I mean, you're from a perspective of one of the actual companies that are representing geothermal in a sense. What are your thoughts after listening in today?
Look, I think it's exciting. I think this innovation capability that we see on the stage here and the actors we've talked about, this innovation capability and the magic of the collaboration that we talk about, it will accrue to those that are most motivated to see it occur. And I think the job for us is two things. One is to show the industry what can be achieved, and then of course to figure out who really wants to be on board with us, right? Because a lot of us are small companies, and bureaucracy is not good for us. So I think that's the challenge here.
Pernilla, who doesn't want to be on board with us?
No, but actually, I was sitting here listening, and I think that's the point. Everybody so far that we're talking to has almost the same reaction as Marie. I mean, it's we need to market ourselves more, but nobody says this is a bad idea. Everybody just says, "My God, I want to be a part of this." And people we talk to, they want to come and work with us, as long as they know about us. So, I haven't met anybody to date who doesn't want to be a part of the industry. But that doesn't mean we have to stop sort of marketing ourselves and including more people.
And on that topic, thank you, Pernilla, for that bridge. I would like to introduce actually a new platform moving forward where we actually agreed and realized that we need to talk about this business and other sustainable businesses in a new, positive way. And we need to make sure that a lot of people get to know what is actually happening in this business. Let's take a look at something that is actually a global rollout coming to you today.
Welcome to The Switch, not another podcast, hosted by Kristina Hagström Ilevska. The Switch is a collaboration between Baseload Capital, DNB and Energy Disruptors, aiming to accelerate the green transition. We want our podcast to be a central hub for knowledge exchange within the fields of renewables and green transition.
Welcome to the studio of Switch, not another podcast. Today I'm here with great company. I actually have the founders of this podcast with me here today, Elisabeth Besko from DNB and Alexander Helling, Baseload Capital. And I'm here to ask them the questions you're maybe wondering about. Why do you start a podcast like this? So I'm turning to you, Elisabeth, first. Why does a bank like DNB invest in a podcast about green transition?
I think green transition for our customers will be extremely important for the future. We need to show that there are new technologies, green technologies, that actually could replace a lot of the old one. And we need to challenge our clients with new business models, a new way to do things. And this is a way to get the knowledge out, to actually share competence between a lot of different parties, both for us as a bank, but also listen to interesting speakers, but also other companies in this area.
So a place or a platform for collaboration and inspiration.
Yes.
Good. What about Baseload Capital? How come we invested in a company?
Well, we think the Switch is super important for as a platform to discuss new technologies and ecosystem in order to bring the planet back into balance. And Baseload Capital, we started because we saw a huge untapped potential in the geothermal energy space. And not many people know about the geothermal energy space, and we thought that this has such a big potential to be a big part of the renewable ecosystem. So we think that the Switch is an excellent alternative to discuss all the different renewables, including geothermal.
So a platform for everybody to know that there are more options out there.
Yes.
What would have happened to Baseload Capital if we would have had this opportunity when we started up?
Well, I think that we could have learned a lot from other platforms, like from solar and from wind and from the financing industry. So, I think that this can be one of our contributors, not only to ourselves, but also to others. How do we learn from each other to, execute faster and to, do the switch from brown to green in a faster way?
We have chosen to have a language which is very common, and we've been trying to take down difficult things to an easy way to understand. Why do you think that this is important? What do you say, Elisabeth?
I would say listen to the media today. You can get afraid. And I think the way for the Switch to actually bring this up in an easy way, but also to talk a lot about the opportunities. I think that is really was something that attracts people, because everything seems so difficult, so bad, and sometimes I think people just turn off. But now we have the Switch, which I think is extremely good, actually. Yeah.
In the show, we have a corporate bullshit button. Why do we need to have one?
We need to keep this simple. We need to use a language that actually people understand and is interesting to listen to.
Yes, and I think that we need to focus on the execution and the future. So we should not hide behind large words. We should focus on how do we solve the problems ahead.
You heard it. This is why we have the corporate bullshit button. And also because we want to give you the truth on how we can do the transition together. So join us at The Switch, not another podcast. So I want to make sure that the world understood that actually both my boss, Alexander Helling, and Elisabeth Besko actually said it's okay that I use the BS word for the future. Are we agreed to that? We heard it, everybody, yes? Let's ask you again. Marie, what do you say from an outsider's perspective? Why do we need a podcast talking about these kind of things?
I think it's just an urgent need for a transition in the world. And if we're going to succeed, we have to learn from each other. And I'm a financing person. I don't know about the expertise that you have, but I have to learn about that if I'm going to finance it. So I think everyone just have to learn from each other. So I think this is a very good example of that, sharing experience.
Thank you. John, I'm thinking from your perspective, I mean, we're going to talk with solar and wind. We're not only going to talk about geothermal. What is your perspective on this? I mean, we're giving everybody room here. Shouldn't we only talk about geothermal?
I think energy is an interesting space, and we will always say there is room for all different kinds of energy, right? Wind doesn't blow consistently. Hydro provides great storage. Baseload geothermal is an important part of that mix. And I think the green transition is one about getting that mix right. Different countries have different opportunities, and in geothermal we need to play our part, right? And particularly with baseload generation. For anybody who's dispatching energy, baseload is enormously valuable. So we have a very key role to play in the geothermal space.
I agree. And together with all the different renewables, we can definitely be a part of making the world a better place. Those are big words, but I think that each and every one of us needs to take part in making sure that we strive to do that. Any last words? What is the one word that you think about when you conclude and summarize your 1.5 hour on the show today? What would be your word? Kevin, what's your word?
Excited.
Opportunities.
I would say collaboration.
2 words, knowledge increase.
Execution. Let's go and do it.
John.
And motivation, I think. Finding that motivation.
Well, what's the one thing you will take with you after listening to today's conversations? I hope that you have been inspired to go on a quest to talk more about the ecosystem, to make sure that you get to know more about your personal ecosystem and what you can collaborate with in order to become better. We gathered great minds from all parts of the industry to get an overall picture of what must and can be done. Through insightful and engaging conversations, we are not only more inspired, but also have the tools. I hope that you will use these tools and that we can make sure to continue to provide more tools to you in the future. If you want to take a part in that and don't miss a single beat, I suggest 3 things. So, number 1, go subscribe to Baseload Capital's newsletter and you won't miss a single beat. Go in and subscribe to our YouTube channel and you will get all the great content in different pieces from today if you want to listen in again on what John said or Marie or any of the other conversations. And in the end, if you want to really make sure that you are a part of the switch, go in and subscribe to a podcast or a YouTube channel close to you. We will send out all information. We hope that you found it insightful and we hope that the tools create success for you because you have a success, you have an important part of making your industry a success. It's time for geothermal to take its well-deserved space in the renewable ecosystem. We will continue to support each other, of course. Until the next time we meet, stay safe, take care of yourself, and if you can, someone else. Goodbye, wherever you are in the world, and thank you for joining us here. Thank you.
I'm evaluating why you wouldn't be my friend. We're so close to the end. Start creating me a world I comprehend. I don't need a friend, but you're assuming that I'm not. Yes, you're assuming that I'm false. So come on, sue me when I'm in my worst state of mind, assuming I'm fine. You are a neglecting piece of shit and I'm a god. Counting I'm a fraud, but you're assuming that I'm not. Yes, you're assuming that I'm false. Come on, sue me when I'm in my worst state of mind, assuming I'm fine.